Welcome back to Killer Fun, where we explore the intersection of crime and entertainment every other week. I'm Christy, and today, Jackie and I are on hiatus, but that does not mean just because we're not recording a brand new episode for you that we don't have brand new content, because we do. We have outtakes from 3 episodes for you today. American Nightmare, the horrific and shocking true story of a couple of people who had an unbelievable experience. The Brother's Son, a very fun kung fu sort of mob show that was just delightful. And then Mr. and Mrs. Smith, an episodic remake of movies from years and years ago. It's totally fun. We have lots of fun things to talk about. So first, in American Nightmare, we talk about bad handwriting, how cult shows fascinate us. There's a spoiler alert about the couple's relationship. Plane crashes are Jackie's jam. And flubs, of course, there's always flubs, and I get lost on my thought train. Enjoy. Felicity. I didn't read my handwriting very well. I was like, that doesn't look right. Let me put my glasses
on.
Felicity Morris directed The Tinder Swindler.
Oh, okay.
And was a producer on Don't F with Cats and Waco, Madman or Messiah.
Oh.
Which is on Hulu, and I went and watched last week while I was doing other stuff. And I don't know about you, but I am a sucker for these like cults exposed.
I know. Me too. Especially when they really do a good job of telling like both sides of it.
Which the
yes.
Waco one did. Mm-hmm. Like they had people who were like still in the Branch Davidian.
I mean, that's so interesting.
Which I'm like, I can't believe that there are people who are still subscribing to this.
Yeah, but that was one of those, they didn't have like a mass suicide thing the way that people think. They had a mass suicide thing, and that changes their whole story.
Right.
Which is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but we digress because that's not what we're covering today.
No, that's not what we're covering, but I do love me a culty exposed sort of situation. So we hear some of these text messages between Aaron and Andrea, his ex.
Yeah.
And I was like, Denise, girl, drop his butt.
I know. I know.
Girl, love yourself more.
Okay, how much? Wait, pause. How much are we spoiling here?
Oh,
because what I'm about to say is kind of spoiler.
Oh, well, then I'll go ahead and say it.
Okay.
And I'm going to put this in a bonus episode in the future.
Rockin'. Okay. They do end up together.
They do end up together.
But I can't help but think that some of that has to be a bit of a trauma bond.
Oh, yeah.
But also,
ding, ding, ding.
I feel like I don't know why I actually had empathy for him. And I feel weird about it. I feel weird about it.
I feel like maybe Denise is the one he was supposed to end up with, you know, like if you believe in the fate or whatever.
Yeah.
Like she was his person and he just hadn't recognized it yet.
I did. I felt a little bit of that kind of going on, and he seems like a very loyal person. Uh-huh. So that I could see why it would be hard for him to let go a previous relationship and be able to move on without thinking there must be something that I could do to rectify my prior commitment.
Right.
You know, that would in and of itself gnaw at him. But he, at the same time, actually treated Denise very well.
Right. Well, he says he didn't. He actually says, I didn't treat her very well.
And like,
but
that's
I'm
a
like,
lie.
oh, but you, I mean, okay, you were talking to your ex kind of behind her back, but y'all weren't like super exclusive yet. And
he was, like,
and he shouldn't have done that. Then he felt guilty about it. But at the same time, like,
he was talking about it. He was clearly kind to her. And when all of this stuff happened, he doubled down and said, I will not rest until she's safe.
Right.
You know, like,
yeah.
If anything, if he was really kind of like that dude, this was his way out, man.
Well, I mean, she even told him, the total spoiler, later, she was like, I don't want the only reason that we're together is because of this.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he was like, no, I really love you. And I think that that's like the whole dichotomy of the really hard is that he had this history with this other girl and he felt bad that he couldn't make it work. But also he really honestly did care about both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, and
we just have to realize that that's possible.
Right.
Especially when you're transitioning out of like a heavy relationship and then like kind of recognizing that something is new and becoming very important.
Right.
That's kind of a hard jump.
Well, and it can be really hard too. Like he can, am I just jumping into this because really what I want to be is with my ex?
Yeah.
No. Aaron, love yourself more. Mm-hmm. Andrea wasn't a good girlfriend for you.
No, she really wasn't.
She really was a bad girlfriend.
I mean, I'm sorry, but that interview that she gave was like, oh, she is not the one.
No.
Like his level of concern for somebody he literally just had a fight with is so much more and so kind and respectful. And she is so, just, she's not at all concerned that like her colleague.
Yes.
Her colleague, direct colleague, is kidnapped and missing. Like she seems to have no concern at all.
I agreed.
It's really crazy.
It was not good. Yep. All right. And then in Denise's I'm Alive voice recording that she shared, she gave some information so that we would know that it was not pre-recorded.
Right.
And one of those things was a plane crash in the Alps. Did you remember this? You like your phone. You like your plane crashes. I mean, not that you like them, but you're interested by them.
I really love air disasters, and I watch it a lot. And like, I have it recorded, so like I have all the seasons. I kind of remembered this, a little bit, but I did because I'm not looking. I didn't go look up to see if I've actually seen this crash yet. Because they didn't give enough information. Because a plane crashing in the Alps is, well, unfortunately to say, not exactly a solitary event.
No.
So that's a hard area to fly in. That's just a hard area to fly in.
Well, it's especially hard when the co-pilot of the Germanwings flight that crashed in the French Alps crashed it intentionally.
Oh, it's that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm like, yes, I know that one. Yes.
Yeah.
It was a suicide mission. He had been mentally ill for like ever. Doctors didn't talk. Turns out there was a privacy issue between doctors and the airlines thought they couldn't ask these questions.
Right.
And then he did some things and locked his co-pilot out.
Yep. And his co-pilot went to the bathroom and he locked him out.
So turned off the transponder.
Yeah. So since then, European Aviation Safety Agency has changed their guidelines to say that there have to be at least 2 authorized staff members. So if the co-pilot or the pilot need to go to the bathroom, then a flight attendant will come sit in there with them to make sure that nobody gets locked out of the cockpit.
Out of the cockpit. The irony being, the whole cockpit being locked thing is a post 9/11 situation.
Right.
Because in the past, like nobody locked it ever. It wasn't even locks on some of it. It was just a door.
Right.
Yeah. Like it was just a door or maybe a curtain, depending on where you're at. So like, so that was a whole thing. He utilized safety measures and weaponized them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because he had been very ill for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And, that was the other thing that changed. They changed the privacy so that airlines had access to certain medical records and had to be required as part of the job to be able to ask those questions of physicians, and physicians were told like they're mandatory reporters.
Right.
So if there's a person who is a pilot who is struggling with any kind of mental health disorder, that is no longer confidential.
Right.
In Europe, because they're like, well, that's an issue because you have souls in your hand.
Yeah.
So therefore you have to report, because your mental health issue could actually detract from your ability to do your job.
Yes.
And your job is life or death.
Yeah.
So, yes,
Fair.
I did see that one.
Fair. Oh, good. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying which awful accident happened in the Swiss Alps, because you never know. There's been a few.
The look of enjoyment on your face.
I know.
It's
Why do
it's
I
just
love this?
It's so interesting.
It's
the same reason we
a,
like crime.
It's a puzzle.
It is a puzzle.
That's all.
That's
It's a
interesting.
puzzle, and it's a work puzzle. And so it has to do with work procedures and processes to keep people safe. And the puzzle itself is what is so
interesting to you.
Interesting to me. You know, the fact that we fly through the air, that should be interesting anyway.
I mean, somebody takes a skyscraper and puts it on its side and we fly through the air. It's bananas.
It's really weird that we do this. And so I have to admit, like when we're in the airport and people are complaining, like, oh, we have to change. Oh, they changed the plane because something was wrong. And I'm like, that you have the wrong punctuation. They changed the plane because something was wrong with it. Thank God they care about our lives. Like perspective, people, perspective. You are rocketing through the air.
That's right.
Let's get real.
Oh, they don't care about your life. They care about their bank account when the plane crashes and your family sues.
Oh, I don't. You and I might disagree on that. I don't think anybody makes money when people die. So you can hook it to an economic drive. I don't think most people want blood on their hands.
No, I would agree. I would say that the people who, examine the plane and make sure that it's safe to fly legitimately care. The pilots, with the exception of the guy who, crashed in the Alps.
Purposely.
Maybe,
These people care.
They care. I think that the airline as an entity cares less.
I don't know.
As opposed, well, this is why we have the doors flying off where there was no door.
But see, that's part of the puzzle. Was it because people didn't care about lives, or were they not employing proper technique and processes, and so they were not behaving in a way that supported their values? Right?
They were like, get it done cheap.
I don't know. I think they had bad processes.
Okay.
I don't know.
But are those bad processes because of an error or because of economics?
Well,
that's the interesting question to ask.
As many times as I've watched air disasters, very rarely is it economics.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
It's
that
rarely.
Makes me feel better.
There has been a few stories where corruption was seen, where people in charge just didn't care. Frankly, the whole 737 MAX situation with the crashing, where they were all grounded the first time, was actually one of those situations. Not because of Boeing, but because of the national airlines of those that not doing the training because they didn't want to do the training the way that Boeing said. Boeing's big regret, and as they've said in interview, was that they even sold these planes to those nations to begin with because they just didn't want to do the work.
Right.
That has to be done. So very rarely is it that. That's what's so scary about it.
Yeah.
You would think values drive behaviors.
Yeah.
But the truth is that most people are very, they diverge from their values when it comes to doing the work and the process to support it. And that is what's so crazy about human behavior and human existence, is why do you do things to sabotage your own self? But we do. And we do them from a complete stance of mindlessness. And a lot of times other priorities that are more urgent may get in the way, but not because they don't care about the bigger goal. It's because in the moment, the urgent things seem to take over. Right?
That's fair.
It's the way that we let relationships die.
Oh, okay. Thoughtlessness.
But you know what? It is hard to be thoughtful about a checklist. I get it. It's not exciting. It's not exciting to follow checklists and get it done. You know what I mean? And frankly, had they just left the door there, just kidding. Yeah. I mean, Boeing designed it a certain way. Can we just keep it the way the airline designs it? Why do we need custom? If there was a door there, if there was actually a door there, it wouldn't have flown off. Doors can't open in the air like that. They're not designed that way. Like, come on. But I digress. Yeah. That's for another episode. Anyway, the point being that, yes, most of the time I've been pleased to see that. That's why I love it, though. That's the organizational behavior side of me that likes work processes.
Okay.
Is that I'm always amazed at how often people do things that are absolutely contrary to their values, but because it's not exciting, it doesn't keep our attention, and it doesn't feel urgent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But is it? Or is it just interesting to nerds like me?
There's nothing wrong with things only being interesting in nerd ways. You've seen me geek out about spreadsheets. You've seen how happy spreadsheets make me.
It's true.
It's fine.
It's true.
It's
You know what? You know what? Salute to the nerds.
That's right. Amen. Amen. Too many white men and women. Too many white. So, I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought.
That's it.
Like, I don't know. We need to. I don't know. That's just it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, that's it. Bye-bye.
Like, I don't know how to end the episode. Like, what's wrong with me?
It was the whole killer take. It was a new thing.
That's right.
It was a new thing. And so it was kind of like,
what?
Do we have any other theories? No.
No.
I'm dry. That was it. That was my big take. I had nothing else to say.
I'm dry about the people in wetsuits.
Yeah.
All of the sources that we use to inform our discussion here on Killer Fun Podcast can be found on our social media. Join us on Facebook at Killer Fun Podcast, exploring the intersection of crime and entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Killer Fun Pod, or you can send us an email at killerfunpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share a link to whatever information you're looking for. We love to hear from you. You might learn a little something too. I have just a couple of outtakes from The Brothers' Son. We talk about kitchen equipment and masks in Chinese opera have meaning. Interesting. Enjoy. Charles, has some pretty creative ways to use his baking equipment.
Oh, definitely.
And I'm just really glad that I don't need that level of self-defense because I don't have those things in my home.
Yeah, the contraptions that people have in their kitchens that I'm like, I am a simple person when it comes to the kitchen.
Like if a recipe calls for sifting.
Oh gosh, no. Sifting. There's not a recipe I would encounter that would call for sifting. Really?
No.
Not in my life. What would you make that would call for sifting?
Like maybe like if I was making a cake or something and you sift the dry ingredients together so they're well mixed.
Okay.
I've done it rarely and only to try and approximate like a traditional baked good in a low carb environment for my husband.
Okay. So you have a sifter?
No.
Okay.
I have a mesh sieve that will work as a sifter in a pinch.
Okay, like I have a mesh colander, but I think it's too big still.
I mean, but you could still, it would work well enough.
Yeah.
If you had to.
If I had to.
But yeah, I can't imagine a scenario where I'd actually have to.
Yeah, no,
unless, there's a zombie apocalypse. I'm not living through that. So I don't have this drive to survive so much that I want to live through The Walking Dead. So Charles' assailants all wore theater masks, right? So I don't know if the colors in the show were really all that significant.
Okay.
But when they're on stage, they do have
it's a meaning. There's a whole
there's a whole very particular meaning that anybody who's watching like a Chinese opera would absolutely understand.
Okay, yeah.
So red is courage, heroism, bravery, or loyalty.
Okay.
So it's not an anger face, it's your hero's face.
Okay.
It is probably your main character, probably the person you're rooting for. A yellow or white mask would be evil and cruelty.
Okay.
Black is someone who's neutral.
Okay.
Green is violent.
Ooh.
And gold or silver masks are only for supernatural creatures.
Okay. Interesting. That is a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
I have ideas. It's inspiring. Wow. I'm going to have to stop talking because I don't know what I'm saying, but it's very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The last set of outtakes we have for you today is from Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the Prime Video episodic remake of movies from years ago. Flubs, of course. We get kind of confused. We talk about houseplant health apps. How much money do people actually have in their checking accounts? There's statistics on that, y'all. Could John have been a drone pilot? Maybe. And, KGB tactics, because, what's a crime episode without KGB tactics? Enjoy. She's best known for her Starling role.
Starling.
Not Starling.
Okay, hold on one second. Okay, good. I'm so confused because it says other John is this guy.
No.
Is that wrong?
That's wrong.
Okay.
Maybe there's another other John. I think there's multiple other Johns
that we see along because that looks like him to me. That looks like the one in the first part of it.
No, it's for sure
this guy.
No.
Okay.
It was definitely Alexander Skarsgård.
Okay.
He's more blonde, and that's fine.
Yeah. Well, blonde, but dying here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just had to because I was so confused about it. When you said that, and I hadn't seen it here. So then I was really confused. Okay.
No, I think there's multiple other Johns.
There must be.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we haven't gotten to that. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
But I mean, he was in it for like a hot minute.
A hot second.
A hot second.
Seriously.
I'm going to get to that right here.
Okay. All right. Sorry. I back up.
That's fine. No, it's fine. All right. So is there an app that can diagnose the health of your houseplant like John suggested?
I believe that there is because I've heard of this, but at the very least, you can open Google Lens and do it.
Yes. There is an app called Picture This that will use AI to identify a plant and help you figure out what it needs. Like if it's got brown tips or it's wilty or whatever, it'll tell you what to do in or out of direct sunlight, fertilizer, the whole thing. Yeah. So there is one. There's other watering schedule apps to help you so you don't kill your plants, which is kind of like what he was saying that they were automated.
Right.
I couldn't find that there was actual automation for your plants.
I mean, I know there's devices. Like there's little the upside down water bubble thing, and that'll
those don't really work all that well and then for most plants.
Yeah.
But
so
there's one for iOS for your iPhone called Happy Plant that will help you set up watering schedules that are appropriate for your plant, and it'll encourage you to take a photo so that you can. And it'll make a time-lapse video for you.
Oh, that's
so
cute.
So every time you water your plant, you take a little picture of it and then makes a little time-lapse so you can see how it's doing. And WaterBot is for Android, and it'll just basically send you a notification like, time to water your plant because you're not good at this.
Yeah, and I'm not.
And I'm not.
I'm not good at this.
But I just don't have indoor plants.
Nope. Fake ones.
Yeah. Jane, as I mentioned, had $14,000 in her checking account, and John had $366 in his. Yeah. Who's more of an outlier?
Her.
Okay. I would say yes, but they're both kind of outliers.
Okay.
So the Federal Reserve puts out information about bank accounts and things every 3 years. So the most recent one was in 2022. And for transactional accounts, the median number, so mean is average, medium means half or below and half or above.
Right, middle.
It's like the middle, yes. So for transactional accounts for somebody who's single with no children under the age of 55 is about $4,000.
Okay.
In their transactional accounts. That's about what they would have
for the median.
Liquid cash available. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so.
Well, it just depends on what the bell curve looks like.
Right.
How far outside they really are.
Yeah.
Of what's normal.
But I would say.
Because do they have the standard deviation? Look at me, I'm a nerd.
They probably did, but I don't have it in this particular.
Because that would tell us, where they if they're within one either way,
right?
But I feel like
it's pretty far out.
I feel like it'd be like that. Yeah, I feel like for that age, but he's not a kid. He's an adult. So I feel like it's a little low. You shouldn't have futons anymore.
Yeah.
You should have furniture, And I feel like You know what I mean?
You should be eating ramen from the restaurant,
Yes.
not ramen from the
Package.
bodega.
Yeah. Right. Like, and so like, I feel like she probably has a little more than a lot her age. Because, you know, people spend it on things like furniture and ramen that is not from the little package that's 10 cents.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so John indicates that he was a military drone pilot in the early days of their use in Afghanistan. So when was that?
Gosh.
Do you know?
I might be able to figure it out with enough time, but I feel like it was like 07, 08, maybe 09.
Okay.
Late aughts, early tens.
Okay. It was actually quite a bit earlier than that, which is what made me question it, because that's what I thought. I was like, I thought that was like the early 2000s.
At least bombers.
So the CIA was running Predators covertly in the late 2000, looking for Osama bin Laden.
Okay,
now they weren't bombing.
That's what I mean. Like, but we're talking about drone pilots who are bombers, not spy.
I'm getting there. So after September 11th, when Al Qaeda attacked the U.S., they started using the Predator for bombing missions.
Right. Okay.
And they did 164 bombing missions in Afghanistan between September of 2001 and January 2003.
Wow.
So quite a lot.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I know the pilots for the drones tend to be a little younger, because I actually just did research for this for my other podcast, which seems like a weird thing to research for a Prince podcast.
Yeah, that does seem weird.
There was a reason for it, but pilots for the Air Force tend to be in their mid 40s for like fighter pilot jets, because, you know, they need to have enough experience and judgment to be able to, you know, run the very many multi-million-dollar planes.
Right.
So, but drones are cheaper. And they operate a little differently. So drone pilots do tend to be young, 23 or younger in many cases. So I couldn't figure out how old John and Jane were supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if so. That was what confused me a little bit. I'm like, when is this taking place? Because I'm not exactly sure. They have smartphones, but is this supposed to have happened several years ago, or
I don't know. I mean,
how old are they supposed to be? Because Donald Glover is 40, and if he were 40, maybe it was conceivable that he would have been a drone pilot in like 2000 or early 2000s.
I mean, maybe, but if he was military, not CIA.
Right.
If he was
military.
Right. And so that's what I'm thinking, like, though, I don't think the Air Force really started their drone program, their drone pilot programs until, I mean, because if we're talking CIA materials we're using, that's not the same thing as in later.
The CIA did it in 2000.
That's what I'm saying.
I think it was the regular military that was doing it early. But I don't know for sure. That it was unclear,
right,
from this.
Because if they started using the Predator,
article.
But I would say even if that was the case, it would still be released. Not because I remember that they started recruiting for that, made it a whole job, right?
Right.
So I think that probably occurred later, and probably actual pilots maybe were doing that
a little bit later.
And so I think I think a little later it's probably, because it would make sense if he was doing it a little later. But still early. I mean, we're still talking about aughts, you know, like mid aughts. Yeah. You know, because it doesn't take long to go through that program.
No, it's not. It's not like being a pilot.
No.
It's not, you don't have to be.
No.
You know, if you're a pilot, you have to have a bachelor's degree, and you have to go to a couple years of flight school and then training, and then it's a very long process.
Yeah, you have to go through the Air Force Academy.
Right.
You have to. And Air Force Academy is straight out of high school with congressional recommendations, all the things. Then you go through multi-years of different training. So you've got initial flight school, and then you get assigned your equipment. Then you go there. Like, you know, it's a whole long deal. Like doctor or pilot. in the military.
Those
anyways.
are the
same kind of
And
like
you can almost get out of being a doctor faster than you can get out being a pilot.
maybe so, maybe so, depending on what you fly, I guess.
Right,
You know,
right.
because if you end up flying certain things, you won't have as much training as like say fighter pilots.
Right. Yes.
Right.
All right. So Jane said that it was an old KGB tactic to pair up spies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So evidently, yes.
Okay.
That it really was something that they did. And the Daily Beast had a whole article. And they had the Russian spies who inspired the Americans.
Okay.
So, but I thought that fit because
Yeah.
the Americans were KGB in that show. They were far more successful than any of the actual spies that did this. And the KGB officers would walk around cemeteries and look for candidates for tombstoning.
Okay.
So they would find a child who had died away from the country where they were born and didn't have any close relatives in order to be able to use their actual names and identifying information to be able to,
Right.
you know, create an identity around that. Gives it more of a backstory.
Right.
But then you still have to, you know, fake all the documents and all that. Or you can, but if they have you could request some of those
Right.
documents.
Like it could be real.
Right. They would recruit people who were in their early 20s because if they were younger than that, you didn't have they didn't have enough experience to be reliably able to survive in an intense situation. And by the time they were 30, they were not malleable enough. And so they would go to universities and recruit them and then spend a lot of time and a lot of money making sure that, you know, they could teach them to speak different language without an accent and that they had all the training that they needed with weapons and how to be successful in their missions. They weren't particularly successful, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But yes, it was a real KGB technique. And the Americans, it was set in the 80s. But the actual arrests that inspired that show didn't happen until 2010.
Wait, what? I'm confused. What are you talking about?
So the arrests that inspired the show The Americans were real.
Okay.
Okay.
And I've never seen that show.
Okay. I haven't either.
Okay.
But it takes place in the 1980s.
Okay.
Okay. Because they were like height of the Cold War,
Right,
blah,
right,
blah, blah.
right. Okay.
But the actual arrests didn't happen until 2010.
Okay.
There were 10 spies, including 4 couples that the FBI arrested in 2010. And all 10 of them pled guilty to secretly acting as agents of the Russian government. And then they traded them back to Russia for some of our own spies.
Yeah.
And somebody asked then Vice President Joe Biden why they would trade 10 spies to get 4 back. And he's like, well, theirs weren't very good. They weren't very good with espionage. They didn't learn anything.
We don't worry about them.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. We know that you make a choice when you listen to us, and we so appreciate it. You know what? Rate and review and tell a friend, because it's so much more fun when you can listen with a friend. And, you know, you can always reach us on social media. You can send us an email. I'd love to hear from you. Rate and review wherever you get podcasts. And we'll be back with you next time, in just a couple weeks, with another set of outtakes. We really appreciate you sticking with us while we take a little bit of vacation, and we so appreciate it. Until next time, be safe, be kind, and wash your hands.
Bum, bum, bum. Da, 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 da.